There is a moment most people never see coming. Everything looks stable on the surface. Markets move, money flows, life continues as usual. But underneath, something starts to break. Slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. And by the time people notice, it is already too late to react. This is what happens when financial reality begins to lose its structure. You are taught to trust the system, to believe that money holds value, that markets follow logic, that stability is normal. But what if stability is not permanent? What if it only exists as long as people believe in it? And the moment that belief weakens, everything starts to shift in ways most are not prepared for. This is not about panic. It is about understanding fragility. Financial systems are built on confidence. Not just numbers, not just policies, but trust. And trust can change faster than any chart. Once confidence begins to crack, the structure that seems strong can start collapsing from the inside. Most people react late because they focus on visible signals, prices, headlines, trends. But the real changes begin long before those signals appear. They begin in behavior, in how money moves, in how people think, in how decisions are made under pressure. That is where reality starts to shift. The danger is not the collapse itself. The danger is being unprepared. Because when systems lose balance, they do not adjust smoothly. They break suddenly. And those who relied on stability without question are the ones who feel the impact the most. This is why understanding money is not optional. It is necessary, because money is not just currency. It is a system of belief, movement, and control. And when that system weakens, everything connected to it begins to change as well. When reality starts to lose coherence, small inconsistencies appear first. Prices no longer reflect value. Assets move without clear reason. Signals conflict. What once felt predictable begins to feel uncertain. Most people ignore these signs because they still trust the old patterns. But those patterns are already weakening beneath the surface. In financial terms, this is where distortion begins. Cheap money flows into the system, pushing assets higher without real growth underneath. It feels like expansion, but it is imbalance. And the longer this imbalance continues, the more fragile the entire structure becomes. At this stage, risk becomes invisible because everything appears to be working. Profits increase. Markets rise. Confidence grows. But this confidence is built on unstable ground. And when reality finally catches up, the correction is not gentle. It is sharp, fast, and often unexpected. Most people respond emotionally, and this happens. Fear replaces confidence. Decisions become reactive. And this is where the biggest losses occur. Not during the rise, but during the fall. Because people who never prepared are forced to act under pressure. And pressure leads to mistakes. The ones who understand the system behave differently. They do not wait for panic. They prepare during calm periods. They build positions when things feel stable, not when everything is already breaking. Because once instability becomes obvious, the opportunity is already gone. Preparation does not mean predicting the future. It means building resilience, diversifying assets, controlling risk, and maintaining liquidity. These are not exciting strategies, but they are what protect you when reality stops behaving the way you expect. As instability grows, the gap between perception and reality widens. People still believe everything is fine, but the structure underneath continues to weaken. This is where denial becomes dangerous, because the longer people ignore the shift, the more exposed they become when the correction finally arrives. Money begins to behave differently in these moments. It moves faster, changes direction suddenly, and reacts to fear more than logic. What once felt stable now feels unpredictable, and those who depended on predictability start losing control, because their strategies were built for a different environment. This is where liquidity becomes power. The ability to move, to act, to adapt. When others are stuck, you have options. But liquidity is built before the crisis, not during it. If you wait until everything starts breaking, it is already too late to position yourself effectively. Most people misunderstand risk. They think risk is taking action, but in unstable systems, risk is being unprepared. It is holding everything in one place, trusting that nothing will change. And when change comes, that lack of preparation becomes the real danger. At this point, you must shift your thinking. Stop asking what will happen next, and start asking how you will respond. Because you cannot control the system, but you can control your position within it. And that position determines whether you survive the shift or benefit from it. This is the mindset of those who navigate uncertainty well. They do not rely on predictions, they rely on structure. They build portfolios that can handle volatility, not just growth. And because of that, they are not forced into bad decisions when conditions change suddenly. As pressure builds, weak structures begin to fail first. Over-leveraged positions collapse, fragile businesses struggle, and inflated assets lose support. What looked strong was often only stretched. And once the tension breaks, the fault reveals how little foundation was there to begin with. This is when reality starts correcting itself. Prices reconnect with value, risk becomes visible again, and the illusion fades. It feels chaotic, but it is a process of alignment. The system is not just breaking, it is resetting. And those who understand this do not panic. They observe and act carefully. Opportunities appear in these moments, but they are not obvious. They are hidden behind fear. When everyone is selling, value begins to form, but only those with patience and preparation can see it. Because acting in fear requires control, and control only comes from understanding. Now the environment feels different. Volatility replaces stability. News becomes louder. Opinions become extreme. This is where clarity becomes rare. And when clarity disappears, people follow the crowd. But the crowd usually moves late, reacting instead of anticipating, which often leads them directly into the worst possible positions. This is why independent thinking becomes your greatest advantage. You cannot rely on no's. You need a framework, a way to evaluate situations based on structure, not emotion. Because in unstable periods, emotion spreads faster than information, and those who follow it lose control quickly. You start focusing on fundamentals again. Real value, real cash flow, real strength. The things that were ignored during expansion suddenly matter again, and assets built on weak foundations begin to disappear, while strong ones survive and eventually lead the next phase of growth. At this stage, patience becomes difficult but essential. The system does not repair itself instantly. It takes time for balance to return. And during that time, many will act too early or too late. Staying steady while others rush is one of the hardest, but most valuable skills you can develop. You also begin to see how narratives shape reality. Stories drive behavior. Behavior drives markets. And when narratives change, outcomes change with them. Understanding this allows you to step back and see patterns instead of reacting to individual events. This perspective gives you distance. You are no longer inside the chaos. You are observing it. And from that position, your decisions become more precise, more controlled, and far less influenced by short-term pressure. As the system begins to stabilize, a new structure slowly forms. It does not look the same as before. Some sectors shrink, others expand. Priorities shift. Capital flows differently. This is where new leaders emerge, not because they are new, but because conditions now favor their strength instead of their weakness. Most people fail to recognize this transition. They wait for the old reality to return, but it never does in the same way. And by waiting, they miss the early stages of the next cycle. The opportunity is not in going back. It is in moving forward with the new structure as it forms. This is where adaptability becomes critical. You cannot stay attached to past strategies. What worked before may not work now. You must adjust your thinking, your positions, and your expectations, because the system has changed, and success now requires alignment with that change. Those who adapt early gain an advantage. They position themselves before trends become obvious. They invest before confidence returns. And because of that, they capture growth while others are still recovering from the previous phase of instability. This is the moment where patience pays off. All the preparation, all the discipline, all the control during uncertainty begins to show results. Not instantly, but clearly. You see your position strengthen while others are still hesitant to act. At this stage, your confidence is not based on optimism. It is based on understanding. You know that cycles repeat, that instability creates opportunity, and that preparation determines outcome. This knowledge removes fear and replaces it with focused action. Now momentum returns, but it feels different. It is not driven by blind optimism, but by renewed structure. Growth begins again, slowly at first, then with increasing strength. And because you position early, you are no longer chasing the trend. You are already inside it, moving with it instead of behind it. This is where the real advantage becomes visible. While others are rebuilding, you are expanding. While they are recovering losses, you are compounding gains. Not because you predicted everything perfectly, but because you prepared for uncertainty instead of ignoring it. You also understand that this phase will not last forever. Growth always carries the seeds of the next imbalance. And because you have seen the cycle before, you remain aware. You participate, but you do not become blind to risk again. This awareness keeps you grounded. You do not chase extremes. You do not follow every new narrative. You stay within your system, adjusting when needed but never abandoning the structure that protected you. When things were unstable, eventually, you realize something important. Reality never truly holds together permanently. It is always shifting, always adjusting, always moving between balance and imbalance. Stability is not a constant state. It is a temporary phase within a larger cycle. And once you understand this, you stop expecting certainty. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. Instead, you build strategies that work across different environments. You prepare for change instead of being surprised by it. Most people never reach this level of awareness. They keep searching for stability, believing that one day everything will finally make sense and stay predictable. But that moment never comes, and by waiting for it, they stay exposed, repeating the same mistakes every time the cycle shifts again. You chose a different path. You stopped relying on fixed expectations and started building flexible systems that do not depend on one outcome, one trend, or one belief. And because of that, your position remains strong even when the environment changes around you. From here, your financial future is no longer fragile. It is adaptive. You are not tied to one version of reality. You can adjust, reposition, and continue moving forward. And that ability becomes your greatest advantage over time. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be moments when things feel unstable again. But those moments no longer control you because you understand the structure behind them. You see the patterns, and that clarity keeps you grounded when others lose direction. Looking back, you realize that the system was never truly stable. It only appeared that way. The real power was never in predicting it perfectly, but in preparing for its changes. And that preparation is what separated you from the majority. This is the final truth. Reality does not need to hold together for you to succeed. You only need to understand how it shifts, build resilience, stay aware, and adapt when needed. Because in a world that constantly changes, the ones who thrive are not the strongest, but the most prepared.